Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Leftovers Podcast. I'm your glorious host, or not so glorious host, Sean. The glorious co-host, Matt, is here, though. The man, myth, legend, the person that went to PAX Unthrug. And how you doing, Darcy? So, and we'll have a full show this week. It's not just me.
I have to say, Tier and I were traveling, and we saw that Sean posted his video, Sean All Alone. I have to tell you, it almost brought a tear to my eye to think of him sitting there alone, unsupervised with the microphone.
but it was just updates. What he was worried I was going to say. So I'm going to add our guest who has joined us. And welcome.
Hi.
Welcome. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. How are y'all?
Just fine. So I am, of course, Sean and Matt, and this is Opti of Fragging Unicorns, who has graciously decided to join us. No, I mean
Thanks
that.
for having me on.
Yeah, no, we're glad to have you on. You got, it's did a little research on you in your games and how you do it, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, I think. And we're going to get into that.
Oh, thanks.
All right. So before we start, though, getting into that, I give Matt always the opportunity to try and not ruin our stream. So go ahead, Matt, with your recap or announcements or whatever.
Well, so just a couple of things this week, nothing too major. I will say that this is probably the last episode of Leftovers this year. I don't know if there will be an opportunity. Maybe if Sean and I have enough eggnog and Captain Morgan Spice Rum, we'll hop on sometime around the holidays. But this is our last planned episode. Now, this is not our last event for the year. So I'd like to just remind everyone that if you're interested in seeing something extra special, that next Tuesday, the 17th of December, from 9 to 11 Eastern Standard Time, give some time. Our co-host Nathan is going to be running Whole, which stands for Human Occupied Landfill. If you have not seen this book, this is quite the treat. It's all like handwritten. And we are going to be doing a holiday special called Oh Holy Night. And I'm not sure what the story is, but I can tell from the graphic here, it looks like Miserable Beast is going to play an important role in that show. So look, it'll be weird. It'll be zany. It'll probably not be safe for work. So if you're bored next Tuesday night, you're trying to get ready, wrap presents and you want something to watch, hop on and this is much better than watching Elf for like the 500th time. So come check out Oh Holy Night next Tuesday night. Other than that, just want to say that Tier and I had a really good time at PAX. PAX is a very different vibe than going up to Gen Con. A lot less busy. I was amazed that he's like, oh, Spot Hero, I got a parking spot across the street. I'm like, what? Like, we got to get there first thing. There's going to be huge lines. And we got there. There was like this giant hallway and a table, and there's no one between us and the ticket booth, right? So we got our stuff. So it was nice. We got to meet some people. We got to try some different stuff while we were there. I got to run into just serendipitously to, it's kind of fun doing this stuff and still being a fan. And I was in the media room. I look over, and it's the host of Roll for Combat, which is kind of mostly a Pathfinder podcast. It's the first one I started listening to. I had talked to him about 4 years ago before we started doing this. Got some advice on like software, legal, all kinds of different things from him. So to meet in person, that was kind of cool. And I picked up a new buddy to adorn my office. If you've listened to some of our stuff, you kind of understand the joke. If you don't, the joke is that I cannot say the name of this creature correctly.
He can't say gelatinous cube correctly.
I've tried and tried and tried. If I think about it, I can actually do it. But if I'm not literally concentrating with all my will, I cannot say this right. So
excuse me.
Now I've got this guy on my shelf from PAX to remind me of my incompetence. That's all I've got for announcements.
Good.
I've never been to
I
PAX.
have one more. No. I have one more.
I'd like to go
because it's really cool. I apologize.
Hello, Mr. Dorcas. I hope you're doing well.
And that is, we got tipped off by someone on Reddit that in number 312 of Knights of the Dinner Table. I don't know if you guys have ever read or listened to stuff. They've been around forever. They do like a comic about D&D and stuff like that. they actually have a bunch of like articles and stuff. And in one of those articles called Go Scandinavian with Dragonbane, somebody wrote a whole big article about Dragonbane. And in it, they say, hey, if you want to see how it's played, stop by, drum roll please, the Advanced Age Role-Playing Gamers podcast on YouTube.
Oh, shit.
So we got a
That's
shout
awesome.
out. We got a shout out in a editorial opinion piece in the back of 132 of Nights at the Dinner Table. So totally going to frame this, right? So
Yeah, that's great because
thanks to whoever was watching and said, you know what, I want to end my literary career by referencing these guys. So
yes. So
All right,
at which point
that's enough of that.
okay, good. We've reached our cult. Since we've reached the summit of our gaming and notoriety, we're going to end this podcast now. No, just kidding. So welcome again, Opti, and welcome to the show.
Thanks.
And we're going to be talking about, of course, him and how he got into this Fragging Unicorn, their most recent addition to their game system, Subversion, which we'll get into, which I think will be interesting for everybody. So usually we start, we talk about you, right? Actually, we just ask you how you got into gaming and how you got into podcasting. And I know you started this around your company around 2019, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So you can get into that too. You can get into that too, how that came about. Feel free, and if you want to go off on a tangent, a hard left, go in a direction for a little while, that's fine too. We do
I've
like a stream of
gone-
consciousness.
I've definitely gone hard left.
All right. So how'd you get started in like your first game system? What you played, and how it got you to the point where you are now?
Oh gosh, let's see. I think the first RPG I ever played was basic Dungeons and Dragons. So it's a long time ago. I had the red box, and eventually got a couple of other boxes. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I remember the gold. The gold box was the one that really grabbed my visual attention, but I didn't know how to play it. So I had a bunch of books.
I had the red box too. I had the blue one even. So yeah.
Yeah. I think I don't know. I had boxes. I don't know. Can't remember, but I also was young enough back then. I think I was and it must have been 5th grade or something like that, maybe junior high. Those years all blend together.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a bunch of advanced Dungeons and Dragons books also, and I thought that they were the same game, but because what do I know? So I had every Dungeons and Dragons thing I could get, but I didn't really have a good GM. So it was basically me and my friends would just read a bunch of books and then pretend that we were playing the game right, but we weren't, which I later learned was probably the right way to play it anyway. Just do what you want with it, and don't worry about the rules too much. But I got into high school and got into a really, really good Dungeons and Dragons game. I think it was 2nd edition, and then a bunch of us became Christians and were convinced that we were going to hell. So we stopped playing Dungeons and Dragons.
I haven't talked to anybody who ever said that. Yep, it's cold stop. I was going to burn. And
yeah. No, we had a great time. It was like the funnest times I ever had in high school. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, I guess
you
I don't
became a
wanna go to
holy
hell,
roller.
so.
That's what you came. That's
gosh,
you know
what
what?
happened. Yeah.
It's part of your
I have a
journey.
question.
Okay.
When you did that, did you give up? Because Nathan
Yeah.
had a friend who he would role play with, but his friend couldn't play D&D, but he could play Marvel. He could play like Star Frontiers. Like it was interesting. His parents, it was very strictly, it wasn't the role playing. It was just like, you couldn't do D&D, couldn't do magic. Did you, when you did that, was it just like cold turkey, all the dice gone, or did you guys play anything else or?
Well, so for me, like that phase of like burning my Led Zeppelin albums and getting rid of D&D lasted.
God.
I know, God. It was
Part of me just died.
I look back and I'm like, gosh darn it, right? And are we how safe for work are we right now?
This is not a safe for work podcast.
Yes, this is
Okay, so I can be
safe.
as unsafe as I want to.
You can
Yes.
say you can say what you want. You're free.
Okay, so the basically like I I didn't get to fuck as much as I wanted to, and I didn't get to play games as much as I wanted to, and but that all like the
I don't want to disappoint you, but those of us who did get to play a lot of D&D, we weren't doing any fucking either.
As much as you wanted.
No, we didn't.
I don't think that would have fixed it.
It came later in life.
I don't want to ruin, the mystique.
I have a line like, you don't walk up to a girl in the bar in the 1980s and go, "Hey, baby, want to talk about my 5th level paladin?" They just freaking throw a drink on you and go look at the guy with the big hair. So it's okay.
I heard you in the
I
role
don't
play.
want to peel back that curtain too much, but
That's hilarious. Okay, so yeah. Anyway, that phase for me lasted about a month or two, and I started buying my Led Zeppelin albums again, and then I started wanting to play Dungeons and Dragons again because I didn't actually get rid of my books, but the group that I was playing with, they were still like all upset. I think it was the mom of the guy whose house we were at mostly got upset, but I was still getting the books, right? So if I couldn't play Dungeons and Dragons, I was still buying other stuff, and there was this really cool bookstore in this mall that I used to go to, and so I would go in there, look for D&D books. I couldn't find D&D books, or I bought them all, and so I picked up another couple of books. I never played. I was just fast forward. I never actually played another physical game of Dungeons and Dragons or anything else until much later, but I still was a collector and that kind of thing. So, and it certainly sparked my imagination. But I did pick up one of my other favorite books, RPGs of that time period, was TMNT and Other Strangeness. And I really enjoyed that book. I don't know if you guys have ever played that. It was a Palladium book. But yeah, it had
I have
Teenage
not
Mutant Ninja Turtles
played
and
it.
rules for creating your own mutants.
Yep. But we were heavy into Palladium.
The game system was not my
90s.
favorite, but the character creation was, yeah.
Well, it's cool. It's
So yeah, we Yeah. So here's the weird thing, right? It got D&D really sparked my imagination going in all, it helped me, Legends and lore helped me pass English in my freshman year because of all the God stuff. But it really sparked my imagination. But long story short, I actually ended up going to seminary after this. And then
did you?
In
my
seminary,
goodness.
I met, yeah. And then I met up with these other dudes, who were we were taking a summer class. And I heard these dudes talking about Dungeons and Dragons, and I was like, "Hey, you guys talking about Dungeons and Dragons?" And they're like, "Yeah. We have this game that we play, or that we're going to start playing." And I was like, "Can I play? That'd be awesome." And so we started this game. It lasted years and years and years. We played every week, and it was at seminary, which is kind of odd, ironic given why we stopped in the first place. And then after that. For 4 or 5 years, we played this one campaign. The campaign was winding down, and I totally skipped over one of the most important parts. Back in the day, one of the things that replaced D&D, in my purchasing was Shadowrun, of course. So
really? Wow.
Yeah. Totally missed
that. Makes sense
now. A little bump in the road there.
That'll be important later.
Now. That is important later. I see now.
So I got the Shadowrun book. Really got into it, and then that was right around the time, for me at least, that the Shadowrun Super Nintendo game and the Shadowrun Sega Genesis game came out, and so I really just exploded with enjoyment for Shadowrun. But this campaign that I was doing, I wasn't GMing, I was just a player, but that started to wind down when I was in seminary, and then I was like, "Hey guys, I remember this game from when I was a kid. It's called Shadowrun. Do you think we might want to give that a shot?" And they were like, "Sure." But I didn't know anything, I didn't know all the lore and anything. They didn't know all the lore. They didn't know how to play. So I went looking to see if there was some sort of podcast that would catch me up on the lore of Shadowrun. And there was not. There's nothing. And I was like, well, shit. I guess if I'm gonna play this lore, it's not like D&D where you can just hop in and homebrew everything. And Shadowrun has a real particular world. So I was like, okay, let me do a real quick and dirty recording for my friends, so they can get caught up. And I did that, and I was like, this is gonna take a lot longer than just one recording. So I recorded 2 or 3 episodes of myself, talking about getting my friends caught up to speed on this world of Shadowrun. And then I was like, if I wanted this and it doesn't exist, chances are that somebody else is going to want this. So I started the Neo-Anarchist podcast to sort of get the Shadowrun lore out to everybody who might want it. And then it just fucking exploded, like, in popularity.
Wow.
Like, I was like getting like thousands and thousands of new people every week. And I was like, holy shit, I had no idea that people like Shadowrun this much. And I had no idea that people like lore this much. And this goofy in-character cross between, this anarchist Rush Limbaugh via NPR character that I made up, just smashing everything together with a little dose of Three Dog from Fallout 3.
That's confusing. Rush Limbaugh, NPR.
Well, I've had a real arc.
You have an arc, yes, you do.
I mean, a real narrative arc.
it was funny because Orcus Dorcas posted like he was on a Catholic retreat. They took the monster man, showed the devils. And while he's putting that up, you're talking about. Then I went to the seminary, and I'm going, "Oh my Lord, this is getting better and better."
Yeah.
So I see how your journey sort of sent you in this direction, and with Shadowrun leads into where you're at now.
So by the time I went to seminary, I had become this is I'm on a tangent here. This is not gaming related, but it'll help you understand where I'm coming from. So I became a pastor. Like 2004 or something like that. And I was a pastor for a number of years. And I got fired from being a pastor, not because I was like doing anything immoral or anything.
So you got fired by God? God just showed up and said,
No. I wasn't like the main pastor of this particular church, but it was a church of a couple thousand people. I got fired because I was asking questions, right? I was like, hey, turns out Jesus was Jewish and blah, blah, blah. And there's like, the elders and things like, well, don't talk about that. And I was like, what? Don't talk about what? That Jesus was Jewish. I was like, what? Like Jesus was Jewish. That's like part of the whole thing. And they're like, don't talk about that.
Yeah, it is.
Like, this is weird. I don't I don't know what to say to you. Right. So I had to anyway, I got fired. they eventually told me to do something I didn't want to do, and I was like, I'm not gonna do that. And they're gonna like, you're fired. So I was like,
how dare you talk about our Lord and Savior?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was poking around because I was gradually now like poking my
of course you're asking
some lefty stuff. I was like, what if we take care of poor people? And they're like, oh my God, what? Why? Anyway, so by the time I actually entered seminary, I was already sort of in my rebellion era. And then I got into seminary. I went a little bit more left because the seminary I was in was pretty lefty. And then by the time I started doing the Shadowrun stuff, I was like, all right, where do I go to get this the real dope? And like the Neo-Anarchist Guide to North America was where I started. And I was like, Neo-Anarchism, all right, if I'm gonna get into character, I gotta really do this. So I did a deep dive on Neo-Anarchists. I'm like, holy shit, I'm an anarchist. So the more I started doing this in-character podcast, the more I started like being like, traditionally libertarian and anarchist. And I say traditionally libertarian. I want to make it.
I have to say this, but you became a self-fulfilling prophecy, if I might add.
Absolutely, I made the character. There's a character in me that wanted to come out, and I just sort of did it.
You got that's awesome from Orcus there. Sounds good.
Yeah. So Jesus and Shadowrun absolutely made me an anarchist. that's just how it is.
Well, that's the path Christ wanted you to go upon. Look at it that way. All right. So.
I mean, that's the path Jesus wanted everybody to go on, but like nobody's trying to talk about that.
He gave out. Yeah, that's a different discussion. That's on our religious podcast, which we're starting on Fridays.
I'd love to be on that one.
I bet. I'm as raised as a good Catholic that as I was. Anyway,
so
all this to say, so you do get to seminary, you start gaming again.
Yeah,
and
seminary gets over. We stop doing D&D. I do the Shadowrun, and in the meantime, I'm like also this podcast that becomes
this crazy podcast, which is awesome. So, and then at what point did you decide, like, hey, I'm going to form my own? I want to make a game, and I want to develop something for everybody to enjoy, like I enjoy it. Right? Yeah. When did you get to that point? Because that is a leap. Everybody we've talked to, there's a point where they try and do it because that is work, man, and that is a lot of passion, a lot of energy.
If I knew, I wouldn't have done it. That's the truth.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
That's good to know. By the way, I'm going to put up their website, Fragging Unicorns, because, he put a lot of energy into this. So make it worth his while. www.fraggingunicorns.com, on X, Fragging Unicorns, and on Blue Sky, profile Fragging Unicorns. Easy to find, folks. Easy to find.
Yeah.
And the website it's good layout. Matt can share it later, but it has it lists misspent youth, hell slayers. It literally has all and then of course Subversion, which we're going to get into. But when you got into the game, like finding what made you say, screw it, I'm going to ruin my life for 6 months and make a game. What made you do that?
Oh God, it's not been just 6 months.
Okay, I don't even know.
So I actually, because of the podcast, right, I ended up meeting a bunch of the Shadowrun folks and ended up writing a bunch of Shadowrun stuff. Is this weird to say? Some of my favorite Shadowrun stuff is stuff that I wrote. But anyway, like it was, and I don't mean that to be like rude. It's just that there was a vibe that I was looking for that I think the early Shadowrun had that I wasn't finding in the current crop of books. So I really was passionate about putting that sort of anarchist, help the little person, community-based, like low, what's this thing, high-tech, low-life, getting that back in there, right, as opposed to sort of being shadowy mercenaries that retire rich. That just seemed really antithetical to the vibe of the early days. But so I started doing that, and along the way, there was this miniatures game, Sprawl Gangers, that they were calling it, that was supposed to come out in 2012, along with 5th edition. And I was playing Warhammer a lot, the old fantasy Warhammer.
Okay.
And I heard that the Shadowrun game was coming out, and the fantasy Warhammer nuked their world, which just made me furious. So I was ready to go for a new game. Anyway, the Shadowrun game was like right there, and I was a playtester for it, and I was like, okay, here's my pivot. I'll just start playing this game, and that'll fill my minis void in my life. And then every summer when I'd go to the cons and talk to the other developers, I'd say, hey, what about Sprawl Gangers? When's that coming out? After like 5 years of asking this question, they finally looked at me, the heads up, the higher ups at Catalyst, and they were like, well, if people buy a lot of these minis, they had these 5-pack of Shadowrun minis that were just awful. And they said, well, if a lot of people buy those, then we'll make some new ones. And if a lot of people buy those, then we'll make some maps. And if a lot of people like those, then we'll make a minis game. And I was like,
no,
it's already been 5 years. What are you guys doing? And so this is when it happened. Right? It was 2018, sitting in Gen Con and listening to them say that they can't do this. And I was like, you know what? You have a lot of resources in this industry, and you're saying you can't do this. I have 0, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to put your in it.
That's good.
That's what it was. Pure
they strung you along too. They strung you along, and then they didn't fill them through, and you're like you were like you're waiting for this thing. We've all been there. Like we're waiting for this cool game or cool this, and then it doesn't happen, and you're like, motherfucker, and it's like I hate you.
Yeah. And along the same time, there was some things I was doing for Jesus take the cyber day. I was doing some work for Shadowrun, writing some really cool stuff, and then a couple of times I just I don't know how to say this. I'm really sensitive. I'm a real sensitive soul.
You sound sensitive. You went to a seminar. It's okay, please.
I mean that in the worst way. Like I just get my feelings hurt real bad sometimes. So a couple of these times I was writing something that I really, really liked, and the payoff was like a year or two in the making because I'd been seeding this, storyline, and then they just fucked it up at the end, and they took it away and gave the ending to somebody else, and I was like, really didn't like
that. Game of Thrones. Yes, I understand.
That hurt my feelings.
Like Game of Thrones, you're like like Lost or something else. Like I'm so emotionally invested in this. What have you done to me? Why have I wasted my life? Yes, I get it.
And then this was the decision that you could just take. Instead of having this all be turned over, is this kind of where Subversion came from? This.
Well, for stuff before that.
So
yeah.
There's a journey here with you with this game system.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's really good because
So
I want you got a world, and I think it's really neat is how you use that world with each game, right? So try and explain that, because I did a little and I really like what I heard and I saw about how you did. Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Matt. But go ahead and give us that, Opti.
Yeah, so the the game mechanic has been around since like 2015. This is the game I wanted to make with this particular dice mechanic and all that kind of stuff. And I started working on this RPG before Gangs of the Undercity, which is the minis game. Spoiler alert. But I thought to myself, like, since I'm working for Shadowrun, like, and if I just go ahead and make my own cyberpunk fantasy game, like, there's a clause in the contract that says you can't do that. You can't just directly compete with something that you know. So I was like, all right, I can't do that. But then I thought to myself, you know what I could do? I could make this minis game and create this world. And then I could just create an RPG and use that world. And I could just say, you know, I wasn't copying Shadowrun. I was using the world of this other game that I made. So anyway, that's I decided out of spite and all those different things to create Gangs of the Undercity. And as we were building the world, do you want to hear some real weird shit? This is how.
Yeah. No, don't tell us that.
So I came up with the name of the city, Neo Babylon. That was the very first thing. And I started fleshing out, like, okay, how do I want this to be? So if it's Neo Babylon, because it's just the name sounded cool, how do I get a world in which Neo Babylon makes any sense? Right? So you have to have Babylon in order to have a Neo Babylon. Yes. And if there was an old Babylon, why would somebody care enough about old Babylon to make a new Babylon? And so that's where the world started going. And I thought, how am I going to get from old Babylon to this new Babylon? Like, how am I going to world build that? So me and my friends, we busted out a game of Risk Legacy.
Oh my! Are you serious?
Oh my God. I swear to God. So some of the weird shit that happens in the world is because some really weird shit happened in the game of Risk Legacy. So we played it like from the very beginning up until until the end. And then when the end happened, that's how we got our world map for the way things are.
That's perfect. That's perfect, dude. It works. Yeah.
It totally works.
It totally works. I can't argue with it.
After that, we just started filling in details, and so Egypt has a really weird outsized relationship to everything in our world. But yeah, we did Gangs of the Undercity, which was just, I mean, don't know how else to say it. It was a mistake. It was just so stressful. But once it was done, like we had like a good name. Like we did the hardest thing, and we did it. Like and we fulfilled it, and everybody was happy. Like it was just like we did the hardest thing that Catalyst said that they couldn't do, and we did it. And everybody's like, "Hey, Opti rules. That's cool. Good for you." You know what I mean? Like it was just like a thing that like everybody goes, "We didn't think that you could do that. You did it. Good job." You know.
Yeah.
And so we immediately after that, the game Gangs of the Undercity did not like catch on. Right? It didn't like go gangbusters. We didn't sell enough to like make a profit. We sold enough to just
pay the bills.
To pay the bill, yeah, to make it to the next game. But we did get a bunch of people like have their eyes on it, and it sort of opened up some other doors for be like, hey, we see that you did this. We really like the game mechanic. We really like the way you set it up. We like the fact that you led this project from start to finish. Would you want to do this for us? So it's led to me having some other work in other places, which is really nice. And some other things I can't talk about, which might be happening.
No. Please tell us so we can ruin your life. Yes.
Well, you know what? I might tell you because I think Shadowrun. I can't tell you if I'm involved in it or not. But
okay.
Shadowrun is coming out with a minis game. If only they had somebody who knew how to make a cyberpunk fantasy minis game.
That they could lean on for somebody
who's a resource who's done this before. I don't know who you're talking about.
Who knows?
They're probably going to go to Ping Fohawk, who
somebody who's also passionate about Shadowrun.
Right, it's going to be.
But it doesn't do miniatures.
You're talking about Ben, right?
Yeah, Ben. It's just Ben. Ben who gets who jokingly himself says he gets a podcast house every other month, just because of their lives.
Yeah.
But I do like the concept of your game where technology in the game system, technology is being used, especially in Subversion. It looks like all the big people, the two to-dos have the magic, and it's technology being used as the cool thing. Where, like in most genres, it's, oh, you got magic, you're cool, and you could do this. No, no, no. The technology is the thing. The people who are trying to rise up are using. Trying to better themselves are using, which I think is an interesting spin.
Yeah, magic in the world of Neo-Babylon, magic is a sort of is our commentary about money, right? So some people just have money, and if you have money, you can just do things that other people can't, and it's just unfair. It's just the way it is, and sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't. And the technology, right, is like you said, that's what's sort of leveling things out. So if you've got a smartphone, you may not have a lot of money, but like you could probably figure out how to do almost anything you want to because you've got a smartphone in your pocket. So anything that magic can do is sort of slowly being usurped by technology, and that's sort of leveling the playing field a little bit, because now obviously the magic folk are trying to leverage the new technologies also.
Yeah, and so Subversion. Yeah, Subversion literally says magic, technology, rebellion in that order on the website. And and you listen as a cyberpunk type fantasy in Neo Babylon, and I've noticed we've interviewed a few people, not just talking about Pink Hawk. We also have interviewed a couple other people who have that sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? We almost got back into the era of, I jokingly say, the Mad Max type of movies, and for the almost apocalyptic or resistance thing or things like that, where
like
the
dystopia.
corporate dystopia, because basically the way the gaming I find reflects the world in some respects. Certain games like rise up when faced with the environment around us. And so it's a good time to have a game like this. But it's a fun game. Even if we didn't, it'd still be cool. It's still cool as shit.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I stopped writing for Shadowrun because it just wasn't fun anymore. Like all the things that we were like warning people about, we're like, well, that's happening now. It's just not as fun. Like it's like, hey, what if we played a role play game in our world, and we were just normal dudes in our world? Yeah. Like it wasn't fun anymore. So, and Shadowrun doesn't have that thread of hope. That I really need. I mean, people can put it there, which we always did, of course, but like, it wasn't scratching an itch for me personally anymore. So we had to go in a different direction. Just thematically.
I get it. Like in the 80s, there was one of the games that was really tough to play was Vampire the Masquerade, because really it's a dark game, and it's like it's not hard. It's very hard to get a positive spin on it. And even Werewolf had some issues because you're fighting this and that, and it's you're fighting this impossible task.
Yeah.
So there's got to be some fun to it. It's got to be some uplifting, which I noticed with you. It's more than just about your game's more than about building a tough character and killing stuff or getting the gold or getting from point A to P. There's like a lot you want the characters to like, or to take a journey and build something or do something. And I think in this game, and tell me if I'm wrong. Like they can
be something, Sean. Right. So one of the main core, like this is funny that we're having this back because it's funny. It's been a year since we talked to you last, right? We had you on the show about a year ago, and it was kind of the first time we'd heard anyone talk about this idea of like hope, like cyber hope, or like a good. Yeah. And what's funny is since we talked to you and since you've got Subversion out, we've run into the cons, and then even some of the folks we have on our show a few months ago with kind of a project that's very different, but one thing that's similar is they also didn't want this bleak future, and they didn't want the heroes. Yeah. Like, let's face it, you look at old Cyberpunk or Shadowrun, it's like, oh my gosh, those people, they have so much money and power. Wish I could be them. Right. It's much more of, I don't know, maybe it's a reflection of the 80s, kind of like I want my piece too. But these games, have this idea that there is like something, you're not just doing this for selfish reasons, right? You're not going on the missions just to line your pockets. And I think one of the biggest things with Subversion that's interesting, and maybe you want to talk about this, is when you're getting ready to play Subversion, part of the character creation process, probably one of the most key parts isn't really your characters.
Yep.
Right. It's the community. And I'd be curious to kind of hear maybe about how you came about to that, what kind of role the community plays. Cause that's not always something that people have. A lot of role-playing games very much are, or whatever they are, sci-fi, magic, whatever. It's how do I get the gold in my pocket? How do I get the +2 longsword? You know,
Right.
This is kind of a very different twist.
Subversion is the, I mean, as much as I love D&D, don't get me wrong. Subversion is the anti D&D. Like you're not doing what you're doing in D&D, and you're not gaining what you're gaining in D&D for the reasons that you're doing it in D&D, right? Like every step of the process is totally different, which made it important. So let me just say up front, Subversion just reflects our values, you know, Fragging Unicorns. It's the game that we made because every part of it, you know, it reflects who we want to be and what we want to have in the world. So, you know, the mechanics of trying to do stuff all the way to, you know, how it affects you when you go against your values. Like those are important things, right? In D&D, you can go kill a bunch of baby kobolds just to take, you know,
yes, you can
a little bit of treasure. And it's like, why?
Let's wipe out the orcs. Let's just kill them
like,
all.
Why does
yes.
why does that? Why in D&D does that feel good, right? So I wanted to say like that's not okay. Like and what would it make to make a game where that's not okay? Well, you've got to have a reason for doing what you're doing. And in my life, the reason I do what I do is because I've got these people around me that I care about. And if I just fucked off into the sun, like they would miss me and they would be affected by it. And if I did something, you know, if I went out and like slaughtered a bunch of babies, even if they were baby puppies, like the community would either have to kick me out or they'd have a black eye. Like it would matter. Like the shit that I do would matter to the community. So we figured like, you know, if the community, like right now I'm building a deck in my backyard because that's what my family wants. That's what I'm spending my time doing because it's what my family needs and wants. Well, like I bet that if you live in this cyberpunk dystopia full of magic, that would still be the case. So, you know, community became the most important thing. And before you even create your characters, you all sit down and you create your community that your characters are going to be a part of. And that gives you the reason to do everything that you do. And when you benefit, your community benefits from it. And it sets up conflicts down the road where if your community values are different than your values, then like what do you choose, and like where's the nobility in that, and like where's the consequences of that. And we've just found that it's an explosion of role playing and an explosion of like thoughtfulness that comes as a result.
Well, yeah. So when you're hitting a good point, question. There's a shallow game you play, which is just fun, right? You just go like Morkborg is one of those games where you make a character and you go out and just do the game with the systems. It's a silly game. You go play. It's not long-term, deep characters. Haven't played book.
We're making a Morkborg hack, by the way. That's one of our next.
Are you? Oh, good Lord!
It's called Rainborg. It's full of rainbows. It's based on 80s cartoons.
Well, I have one friend who Tyr will love that. By the way, but
it's amazing. It's going to be super fun.
Do you get to play like demonic Care Bears and stuff like that?
Hentai girl?
No,
you
get
Smurfs?
You get to, no. Yeah, but you get to play. Well, yes. The answer is all of those things. Yes.
Yeah,
nice.
But you can play Dragon Ball Z to Pikachu to whatever, right?
Yeah.
But the deeper games, like the ones you get like put a lot of thought and effort into, there's a joy to that. Yeah, where you have moral, you try and develop the moral stability or the weaknesses of the character. There is something to that. I agree. It's, I think you get more out of that game. I enjoy one of the things because in our podcast, our AARPG, when we game, there was a point where we were jumping from game to game, and something me and Matt and some of us talked about was how we lamented we couldn't spend a bunch of time developing a character because we would move on to a new system, which is the nature of what we decided to do, though. That's something we accepted. So what we did is, one of the things we do is we have what I call legacy games. We'll replay Sex, Drugs, and Saving Throws, or another, what's the other game? God, I'm losing my mind.
We're supposed to be playing Twilight 2000 again.
Yeah, Twilight 2000, which was our which is basically the real game that really we started on, that we really put into it. We did an Aliens game before, but they were pre-made characters, and we got into it. But I really tried to develop my Twilight character. We all did. And there's an attachment to that, So anybody listening, I'm telling you, when you do a game like that and you can get into it and get into your character and develop it. I mean, when you lose it, it sucks. But while you're doing it, the ride is fun, and you really enjoy it. So, and your game is like, hey, this is a dystopian world and there's danger, this and that, but we're trying to make it a better place. So it gives it sort of like, I want to say that movie-esque thing, like trying to make a better world, like you say.
It's really Goonies and Star Wars and Avatar.
There you go. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
But I mean, a little harder than that. I mean, like we talk about fucking and prostitutes and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's
real
got
world.
Drugs in it. It's got magic in it. But it's different. Like it's the world is hard, but you aren't. You know what I mean? Like you're. Like you get a choice to like, you know what, I can soften this up a little bit. You know what I mean? Like this doesn't have to be, my life doesn't have to be like this, or like, hey, somebody's got to kill a CEO. It might as well be me, so that everybody else can sleep at night.
So and in the game,
you can do that in Subversion.
Can show some stuff. I don't have like the newest. Nathan has the print book. And I had a chance to skim it over at Geek Weekend. I don't know how much of it's changed since the PDF that we have, but I just want to bring up this thing right here is because, so you talk about that. This is impulses, right? Let me just bring this up so it's a little bit bigger. So is this Matt. Still, I don't know if this has changed much because this is a beta that I have from a while ago. But this is part of like the character creation, right? You have these impulses. Are this still in, is this still in part of the game?
Yeah, characters and communities both have impulses and triggers, right? Like you don't live in a dystopian world unscathed, right? So when you encounter stuff that that upsets you, right? Like it doesn't when you fight monsters or you see things that are unsettling, it's not just your physical body that takes the hit, right? Like your emotions and your mind take a hit too. And when you encounter things that upset you, when you encounter things that upset you, it triggers some impulses in you. Everybody has some maladaptive behavior in a dystopia, and that we want to deal with that honestly, right? Like if you do something that goes against your values, you're going to take a mental hit. Like you're not going to be the same person for a while, until you deal with that, and that affects your ability to do everything else.
You've got this thing in here, reflection. Right. And it seems like, is this the mechanism for like how you deal with this conflict or
partially, but it's also, this is a little bit meta. You could do it in character, which I think is fun when players do, but the reflection is actually a meta concept where at the end of the adventure, at the end of the session, you all talk about, hey, how did that go? Like, it's like anti-session zero. Right? Like, hey, did that feel okay? Are we doing good? Like, did your characters, do what they're supposed to do, like according to their own values? How did this affect the community? What do you guys want to do next time? Like, is there anything that your character would be thinking like that they might have done wrong or that you do differently? Like it's like a debrief, like that benefits everybody, but also like the sort of shadow reason that we do it is so that if you kill a bunch of kobolds, babies, during the reflection, you're all going to be like, why did we do that? Like, did that really?
Why do we eat those puppies?
Yeah.
Jesus.
It's part of the organizing, community. And like, if you're going to do rebel shit, then sometimes it's going to go bad. And so you get together afterwards and you go, that didn't go great. Like, instead of saying like, okay, I guess we're done now because it didn't work out that one time, we go, let's reflect on this. Let's change what we need to change and get back out there and try again. So the reflection phase is just, the time where you sit and think about what happened.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
I'm trying to build organizing.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about groups
when
too.
People play Subversion, when people play Subversion and then later on, they're going to be like, I've heard these words before. Like when they come across like people who are trying to change the world, right? Talk about direct action, talk about mutual aid, talk about reflection, talk about impulse. Like this is talk that has a point, you know what I mean? So when they encounter it, like it's like, oh man, I've never heard this anywhere but that weird Subversion game. Or alternatively, like I've encountered like all these words out here, and I've never had an RPG use all these words in this particular way before. I recognize this, right?
Well, I like how you also apply that to the group, right? Because groups do get an identity, and groups, like especially in a, if something bad happens to that group or good, it's going to change how that group responds, obviously. Yeah. So that's interesting. I think that's an interesting piece you put in that game system. Now, real quick, just those who don't know, we touched on what type of system do you use to play the game? What dice system, or what do you?
Yeah, it's a custom dice system, but it uses exclusively D6s. And almost every single thing that you do in Subversion is going to be a test, which is you roll at least three 6-sided dice, and you keep the highest 3. You add those up, and that's your deal. It's modified by this and such, but essentially, you keep 3 dice. If you're better at something, you might roll more than 3 dice, but you only ever keep the highest 3.
All right, I get it.
Yeah, pretty simple.
Go ahead, Matt.
No, that was it. I was just showing.
You're showing the stuff. I thought you were going to continue.
Hoping that it's not changed too much.
I figure you're giving away more of his secrets. At this point.
I'll give them away. You could, if you go to our website, you could find a super secret download. You could just download the game for free.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. Oh yeah, under this thing that says downloads. Oh yes, yeah, you're right. There's stuff here. Yes. Oh my God.
So what are some of the everyone's familiar with sort of like, if you play D&D, there's fighters and mages, and if you play Shadowrun, deckers and street samurai, or if I'm crossing cyberpunk and Shadowrun here, but what are some of the or are there character types, or is it point build, or are there archetypes, or what kind of characters can you play in Subversion?
We have what are called paradigms. There's no classes, traditionally speaking, and neither is it point buy. So, well, I mean, I guess it kind of is, but you get a certain amount of fortune to build your character. And the amount of fortune, that something costs when you create your character is the same amount of fortune it costs later, because I hate when that's not the case. But essentially, you have many character classes that are called paradigms. And you can take any number of paradigms, I guess, to use D&D language. You can multi-class as many times as you want. Take, abilities from any of these. If you go straight up and you buy a lot of abilities from one paradigm, you're obviously going to be better at that thing. But there's nothing saying that you have to, spend so many points here, and there's no penalty for spending other points, somewhere else. So you can become a priest of Marduk, and also a break-in and entering artist, and also a rabble rouser. If that's the trinity of things you want your character to do, you can do that, and it'll feel super easy and natural for that to happen. And there's just a ton of paradigms. There's just a ton of paradigms for you to choose from, so you can really customize your character.
And looking through the book, also it's not just humans in this world, right? So there's you can play, I think, traditional, at least dwarves, elves, some of the other. Are there any unique races or odd races or that you can, or species that you can play in Subversion?
Yeah, so we have humans and dwarfs and elves and goblins and orcs, but we also have Yetin, which are big folk. Yetis and bugbears and Sasquatches and ogres all sort of fit into that category. And they're all just a group of big folk called Yetin in our game. And then there is a Harmaku, which are sort of harpies. They're Babylonian. They're the one, that we really leaned heavily on the Babylonian lore. They're like favored of Ishtar. They look very much like the old statues of Ishtar. So they've got wings that sort of come out of their arms. They're not full like back wings. They're just sort of wings that are on their arms, and they're all female. They're matrilineal, so they're all clones of each other in whatever line that they're part of. So it's kind of fun. That's the harpies are a real favorite of mine. We also have other, like, we're planning on doing a sort of player's handbook or player option book that's coming out soon. So you'll have the option of a whole bunch of other stuff. But yeah, those are the ones that are in the starting book.
Very cool.
That is cool.
So,
oh my God,
how you mentioned so getting this to print? What was besides don't do it? Do you have any other advice to people who
are
trying to potentially break into? Because it's one thing I would think it's hard enough to get something out digitally, right? Because that's you could just do, but literally going to physical print and all that. What are
we're just so vain that we want physical books. We want to have our books on our bookshelves. That's why we do everything we do. We're just so vain. So yeah.
Well, how do you get a book printed? How about that? How would you get a book printed up? Do you just do you just go to a publisher or a bookshop, or just say, hey, print this shit for me? Or is that it?
There's a lot of different ways to do it, obviously. And now you could just throw something together, on your computer and put it on TTRPG and get them to print it for you now. If you're,
wow.
Halfway decent at a couple programs. So there's that. You can do that. But trying to get people to go to TTRPG just to find your book, nobody's going to buy your book. TTRPG has plenty of other options for your book. Nobody's going to buy it. So if you just want to get your book made, then get your book made and have a good time with it. But if you want it to go to a bigger audience, then you really most of my job is marketing. Most of my job is just trying to keep up with keeping people interested in doing things. And so most of that now, the last couple of months, has been making adventures, right? If people have this one Subversion book, but they don't have any adventures to play in it, who cares? But how many independent games do you know? We figured we could be different, and we're not going to charge for them. We're just going to give them away. So we're trying to, it's just marketing, right? It's just sunk costs of marketing. So, yeah,
that's
one of the things that Shadowrun really pissed me off about.
Yeah,
the death of Lawmaster Finn. It's a fucking great. It's a fucking
that's what I was looking at. I didn't want to. It's right there. It's a whole. It's there. It's this is. You can play it right now. We can start right now. I could say, okay, guys, pull up your character sheets. Let's go. So that's pretty cool.
And I hope
because it gives you a good taste of the game.
I hope you'll find that. Yeah, I hope you'll find that it's the easiest game to run too. It gives you everything that you need right there. It's just everything's laid out very easily. We just decided what if we made something that we wanted? What if we laid it out the way that we wanted it? What if we gave GMs every single thing that they needed right there? So that was our attempt. We got another couple of adventures that are just about to drop as soon as they get sort of play tested.
Nice.
Yeah,
very cool.
We're excited.
No, it is.
But it's okay. To get back to your question about getting books printed, it depends. If the quality, the quality really matters. If you want to do it, this is so stupid. I have a bunch of friends that are a part of a group called the IGDN, the Independent Game Developer Network, and they make amazingly fun games, and they pump them out all the time, and they're wildly successful in some cases. But they're just so simple, right? They're just some dude got together and typed a bunch of stuff, really fun game mechanics, and did some art, in the margins, and put a fun little cover, and then sells them, and people buy them, and I'm like, oh my god! And meanwhile, I'm over here I remember playing Dungeons and Dragons, first edition. So that's what I think everything needs to be. Everything needs to be a hardback. Everything needs to have a monster manual. Everything needs to be full production all the way. And I can't let go of it. It's what I want. So that's, everything that I do, coming from Shadowrun and coming from Dungeons and Dragons, everything's got to be high product value, high production. And so it just costs so much money. It's just so fucking expensive and such a pain in the ass, and everything's so complicated that we're just eating up all of our profits and making cool shit.
Yeah, but it's you're building the world, because this website will just grow, right? So this line up top is just going to get bigger. So
I'm really hoping that somebody goes, hey, I really want to make a Shadowrun game, or a Shadowrun movie or a Shadowrun show, but the rights are so tied up. What else can we get? And somebody goes, have you seen fucking Subversion.
That's
that shit's
right.
amazing. Somebody goes,
It's fucking
and that
the
guy,
best shit
that guy
ever.
comes cheap.
That guy's awesome.
That guy'll say the whole fucking thing for $200,000.
The guy needs new underwear, man. Help him.
Yeah.
I think with the hard copy books, though, I don't know. I never know if it's just me being old, but like there are a lot of games that I have on PDF. But if I really like a game, I still buy it.
It's a book. It's right there,
I've
man. Just flip a page.
Now, this is a difference between my wife and I. I have not made the Kindle jump. Like if I'm going to read a book, I still read a book. Right. And I know that's very old fashioned, but my game book's the same way. I've got plenty of books on PDF. You know, you don't see people show it. You know, it's kind of hard to show pictures of your wall in PDF, right? And it's not very interesting, right? A bunch of Adobe symbols on your screen, right? But yeah, so I think that I've heard from multiple folks putting out stuff that the get to print is really hard. But if you really want that, because you want that thing sitting in your hand that's got immediately Nathan's like, look what I got. And I'm like, give me that. You know, it's a good weekend. I'm flipping through the Subversion book, right? I doubt if he'd handed me a tablet and been like, hey, go sit through, it's
different.
PDF. I mean, I've got the PDF, but no, I applaud that it's not easy to get that hard copy out. And I'm
getting
glad
somebody. I mean, look at how much art's in that book, and look at the layout. And like I didn't do either one of those things. Well, I mean, I picked a lot of the art, but like it's an impressive looking book, right? Like when I show people this, I go, look at this. And they go, shit, like you did this? And I was like, I fucking did that.
That's right. Yeah,
I did this.
Right? Like
that's all.
fucking did that. You know, and it wasn't.
You're throwing your dick on the table. This is me.
Yeah. And I obviously had a lot of help, a lot of really good people, help do this. Ryan Maloney and James Palmer in particular did a lot of work. But at the end of the day, you know what I mean? Like, we also do Misspent Youth, which is a real punk ass game, and I love it. But like our Kickstarter for Misspent Youth was like 15,000, right? It's like soft cover. It passed. It did what it needed to do. But it's a soft cover. Like production value is really low. I did all the layout for that one. It's just a punk ass book. But like, I'm not nearly as proud of that production wise as I am Subversion. Right? Subversion is like a fucking book that if you saw it in a bookstore and you compared it to a D&D book or a Shadowrun book, you'd be like, yeah, this is on that. Maybe not
Very
on exactly that level, right? But like, this is a solid, and it's just me and my buddies. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have an office. We're just we're just on Discord a lot. Like, and we did this fucking thing. Like, and but the pain in the ass is like, you think like, okay, how much does each book cost? And like, you base your Kickstarter on that. But then like, you don't count on by the time you get to making them, the prices of everything have gone up. And also, oh shit, I forgot shipping. Like we included shipping, but what we didn't include was shipping from the manufacturer to the distributor. Holy shit. And oh God, now we've got to pay them to print how many minimum copies? At least 1,000? Did we have 1,000 like backers? Oh my God. We're and now we've got to house these somewhere because we've got a
entire basement's
extra...
just full of Subversion books, right? That's
yeah.
We got to start moving these books.
That's right.
The amounts of money just keeps piling up, and then by the time you got to ship it, shipping costs have gone up. It's a nightmare.
It is a bit of a challenge. You need like a team.
Yeah,
or to be independently wealthy. One or the other.
Right. That would be nice.
The lottery. Well,
I was like when Wendy's put out their RPG, I was so salty about it. Like Wendy's put out like one of the slickest, really cool RPGs I've ever seen, and I was like,
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, Wendy's put out an RPG.
They did. They put one out,
and it's just so fucking cool. But I couldn't bring myself to be happy about it because, like, if all of a sudden, like, big corporations that have no connection to gaming started putting out like really high production gaming books just as promotion, like that would just kill the
Feast
industry.
of Legends. That's it. Wendy's Feast of Legends. Rise from the deep freeze, and the cover art is good. But I remember it's back in 2019, right before all the pandemics and stuff. But I remember seeing something about it in the news, going, "Oh my God,
Was this
there it is. That's it."
Yeah.
Right, was this a joke? Was it
No,
actually?
No, it's a real game, man.
It's really good. Somebody paid to really make a really fucking good RPG based on Wendy's
quality.
It's so
Order
good.
of the Double Stack.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, dude, why have we not played this yet?
I don't know.
I am.
This is gonna be one of our anniversary games.
Because again, the thing is, I hate this. Like I love it, like I love like Wendy's, and I love it like I love well-produced RPGs. But like, if people started doing this just as like marketing gimmicks, it's gonna kill the industry.
Oh, it would fuck it all up.
It would really fuck everything up. If all of a sudden, like if Taylor Swift decided, like, you know what, I'm gonna get into the RPG industry. As much as I love Taylor Swift, like, it would just kill the industry because she would just do it better than everybody else with a billion amounts of money, and like, there would be nothing to stop it, right? Like, if all of a sudden, a fucking IBM decided to make paper RPGs, like, we just fold it up, man. Like, there'd be nothing left for us.
X the RPG. Oh, fuck you.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Did you? Yeah, you guys. I'm sure you heard about that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we have. Anyway, so we're coming near the end of the podcast. And I want to give you an opportunity in closing to any comments you would like to make or anything you like. I mean, we've already pushed Subversion a lot. Is there anything else down the line to take a look for, or anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, I popped on here, right after finishing a playtest for our next game, which is totally different, and it's called Myth Connections.
Yes, it's on your website. Okay. Oh, this is a rainbow.
Just a landing page. So if you want to sign up for updates, but we'll be launching that one around Valentine's Day in 2025.
Ooh.
And it is a card game where you are on a dating show and you're trying to date and have sex with and gain friends and do all this kind of stuff with a bunch of, and they're all mythological creatures, right? So you'll be with centaurs and minotaurs and medusas and all that kind of stuff, and it's a double entendre wrapped up in
I'm going to get some Tale of the Manicore. Yeah,
absolutely. It's like what the coffee shop is called, the Magic Bean, for example. It's just hilarious. It's just hilarious all the way through, and all of the different traits. Like you have hot, horny, bony, wet, flappy. They all describe mythological characters, but they're all double entendres. So it's a really, really fun game.
I feel like you should probably collaborate with Chuck Tingle on this. This would be
yes, that's possible. Yeah, like Monster Fuckers.
I'm getting total Tingle vibes on this.
Yeah. But it's the art.
Awesome.
The art is so cute. Like it's just really, really fun.
If it's like this entry, it's probably going to be really cool. So
yeah.
We'll keep an eye out for that, folks. Keep an eye out for Myth Connections.
Hey, and speaking of keeping an eye on things, because we didn't do it at the half-hour mark.
Oh, God, almost got us through this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what you're about to get through.
Look,
forgive me.
I know. Sorry, this is the part of the show where I whore out our goods, right, in the hopes that So hey. If you Christmas time, I think you might still be able to sneak under the radar with shipping. But if you really like what you hear, if you want to show off your support for the show, head on over to our website, check out our store. It's a lot cheaper than trying to buy them off our YouTube channel. I don't know why. They're both made from the same place. But we've got all of original artwork that we've commissioned and our awesome logo on all kinds of stuff. So if you've got a gamer, either yourself or someone that who's leveled up their age stat, head on over and pick up some of our Geek Chic merchandise, because show them you're never too old to roll. There you go, Sean. I did it quick. I'm all done.
Thank you. Very good.
No
very
more.
Good. So I want to put up, fraggingunicorns.com. That's their gaming site. Check it out and look at their one shot, which is, let me go back. Which is
The Death of Lawmaster Finn.
The Death of Lawmaster Finn on PDF. If you want to get a idea of how this game runs, it's literally set up for you can just sit down and go. It's 25 pages, I think I looked at. So it's great. Gives you good taste. You can also follow him on X, Fragging Unicorns, Blue Sky Fragging Unicorns. Of course, the AARPG. Oh, thank you too, Darcy. It's good. Once again, thanks for joining us. Enjoy your holiday and join us for Whole. Thank you. And that'll be it. So I'm going to end. Wish everybody the best of holidays. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy your family and your friends. And be safe. And everything will be better in the new year. All right? One way or another. Say bye, everybody.
Bye everybody.
Bye, everybody. Matt. Yeah.